Who are the Ad Watchers? We are attorneys at the National Advertising Division of BBB National Programs, a team with over 50 years of experience investigating and resolving disputes over the accuracy of national advertising campaigns.
We don't just take ads at face value, we put them to the test. Why? Because advertising law can be simple, but it's the execution that's hard.
Welcome to Season 6 of Ad Watchers, NAD's podcast that gives a view into how our organization reviews claims and applies advertising law. If you missed any of our previous episodes, don't forget to check them out later. They're available wherever you're listening to this.
The Meta algorithm continues to feed me posts which invariably include influencer advertising that really run the gamut, anything from pet-related products to personal care. And as you can imagine, some material connection disclosures are better than others, regardless of how many followers an influencer has. We spoke about influencer advertising, both our monitoring cases and competitor challenges, in episode 5 from last season.
Yeah, I think everybody should know by now that at NAD, we're really have taken a good look at influencer marketing, disclosures that may or may not be made in the ads, the substance of the claims that are being made via influencers. We've seen it a lot. We've seen a lot at this point, and it's something we keep coming back to, and are going to keep coming back to as long as influencers are an important part of the advertising landscape. But Annie, what are we talking specifically about today?
Today, we're going to shift gears and talk about the Center for Industry Self-Regulation's Institute for Responsible Influence. And the Center for Industry Self-Regulation is a 501c3. And the Institute for Responsible Influence, or the IRI, is an important initiative designed to provide guidance to industry, especially brands and influencers, and promote transparency to maintain consumer confidence in advertising.
So IRI, this new initiative, is led by our very own at BBB National Programs, Jennifer Santos. She is a former colleague of ours at NAD, and now she is the program manager for Scissors IRI. Jennifer has so much experience as an advertising lawyer. She's worked at NBC Universal in their ad standards, and her work at NAD included a lot of the influencer cases we've had over the years.
Welcome, Jennifer. We're so happy to have you.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So Jennifer, let's start. Tell us how IRI came about.
So IRI was really created in response to what we were seeing across the digital marketplace. Influencers play an increasingly important role in shaping consumer decisions. And really, there's really not an industry where influencers do not play a role. So at the same time that we're seeing their increased role, there's growing concerns about misinformation, undisclosed sponsorships or partnerships, and misleading claims that are potentially being made by influencers. So the idea for IRI really grew out of our work at the NAD, where we were seeing an increasing number of cases involving influencer marketing. And what stood out wasn't necessarily bad intent. It was often a lack of awareness about advertising standards and what the FTC guidance says. So this really just led us to ask the simple question of, could education help prevent these problems before they occur? So IRI was really designed to bridge that gap by promoting transparency, accountability, and responsible advertising practices, like Annie had mentioned. And at the center of the initiative is this Responsible Influence Certification Program, which is a 90-minute online training that educates creators on responsible advertising practices. Importantly, the program was not developed in a vacuum. So we created this program with an advisory council, and it was made up of brands, influencer marketing agencies, creator platforms, and all of the major advertising and marketing industry associations, including the ANA, the 4As, AAF, and IAB. So their feedback really helped ensure that the program reflected how influencer marketing actually works in practice and what they were seeing in the industry and where we should really focus our training. And then one other big, I think, partnership that I like to mention, TikTok recently partnered with us to support the program, which is obviously huge for us. The partnership reflects a shared commitment to fostering healthier and more transparent ecosystem.
So, how does the IRI work, and who benefits the most from this participation?
So the program's centered around education. We provide creators with practical training on topics like FTC endorsement requirements, disclosure best practices, what constitutes a material connection, responsible use of AI, responsible use of intellectual property. The goal isn't simply to throw this information at creators. It's really to help them understand how to apply the rules in real world content. So it's really meant to be almost like this toolkit that they can then take the rules. Okay, I understand them, and now go apply them when they're creating their content. So creators benefit by gaining knowledge and helping them build credibility and professionalism in the marketplace. They're building that credibility with brands and agencies saying, hey, look, I know the rules of the world, work with me, and really building trust also with their followers. And then brands and agencies benefit because they can identify and work with creators who have demonstrated a commitment to being responsible influencers. And then, like we've said, consumers benefit because they're more likely to receive transparent content and truthful content.
So let's talk about the certification process. What does that look like, and what does a participant have to go through exactly to get that certification?
So the certification process is designed to be accessible, practical, and creator friendly. Creators can visit responsibleinfluence.org where they can enroll in the training program. The certification currently costs $100. It will need to be renewed annually to ensure that the creators stay current as platforms, technologies continue to evolve. The training consists of 12 modules. It takes approximately 90 minutes to complete, but it's not a course that a creator will sit through all at once. The content is broken into short, bite sized segments that can be completed at the creator's own pace. I don't think that there is a module or a section in there that is longer than 6 minutes. So it's really meant to be digested in small portions. Um, and then after completing the training, creators take a 25-question assessment. They need to get an 80% or higher to pass it. And then they sign a responsible influence best practices pledge. And then once they are certified, they receive a certification seal that demonstrates that they've completed training in responsible influence. And creators can display that seal on their social media profiles, websites, media kits. We see a lot of creators posting it on their LinkedIn profiles. And it's really meant to be a signal to brands and to agencies and consumers that this creator who has completed this training takes transparency and responsible marketing seriously.
So we've talked about the needs in the marketplace that IRI is addressing, and we're talking today, a few months after it launched. What's the response been like so far?
Yeah, so we launched in April. So the institute itself launched in January, and then we launched the actual certification program in mid-April. And this response has been overwhelmingly positive. What's been especially encouraging is that we're seeing interest from every part of the creator ecosystem: brands, agencies, creators, platforms, and trade associations. And I think something else that's really interesting is one indication of the momentum around creator education is the growing conversation about responsible influence globally. So, creator education certification programs are not unique to the US. Countries like France and other countries across Europe, Australia, and India have been developing similar programs since 2019. So these countries have already recognized that, responsible influence is really essential to maintaining consumer trust. So now IRI is building on that momentum, and we're helping to really advance that conversation.
Are there any industries that have been especially receptive to IRI or where you see the greatest opportunities for growth?
We've seen particularly strong engagement from the beauty industry, and I would say the broader health and wellness community. And both of those rely heavily on consumer trust and influencer engagement. So it makes sense that they would be interested in a program like IRI. Beauty's been a particularly natural fit. Influencer marketing has become a core part of how consumers discover products, learn about trends in beauty, and really make purchasing decisions. So we've been working with the Independent Beauty Association, or IBA, and they've really been involved since the earliest stages of the IRI initiative. They recognized at a very early stage the growing need for creator education around responsible influence. They represent small independent beauty brands, and, education to them is always a wonderful place to start. So they've really been a big supporter and a valued partner as the program has evolved. We're also seeing that strong interest, like I mentioned, from the broader health and wellness community. I think as influencer marketing continues to grow in health and wellness, and people are turning to influencers to, make decisions about their health or their wellness, I think it's becoming more important to brands to make sure that the influencers they work with understand the rules of the road. So I think these brands are recognizing that educating their creators up front can really help create these stronger partnerships and ultimately reduce risk down the road.
So IRI is already educating and certifying. Is there monitoring for compliance, and how's that going to work?
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up the monitoring. It's definitely an important part of the program. So I think one of the things that makes IRI unique is that it's not intended to be a, one-time certification. It's really intended to be an ongoing process, because responsible influence is an ongoing process, particularly in a digital environment where platforms, technologies, and really consumer expectations, I think, are constantly evolving. I mean, really, honestly, on a weekly basis. So that's why the program is really built around more than just training. So monitoring is a key component. We monitor certified creators' public content to help ensure that they're following best practices that they committed to when they completed their certification. So we use a monitoring tool to look at the public profiles. If we identify a potential issue, our first step is to engage with the creator, provide guidance, and help them understand how to bring the content into alignment with responsible influence principles. It's been going well thus far. We've received a lot of positive feedback from the creators that we are working with. We've even had some creators reach out proactively, which is exciting, to say, hey, if it has to do with a sponsored content, asking us, is this the right way to reflect this sponsored content? Does this make sense? So we're really encouraged by that, because the goal is really to create a continuous learning environment where creators have support and resources available to help them succeed. It is not meant to be a burden to them, right? We want to work with them to really ensure that they have the support they need to be compliant. And I will say that the monitoring is definitely meant to be educational in nature, but the certification also carries accountability. So if a creator repeatedly fails to follow the program standards or is unwilling to work with us to address our concerns, the certification status may be suspended or ultimately revoked. So as the program continues to grow, we'll be launching a certified creator database, and that will allow brands and agencies and other stakeholders to verify a creator's certification status.
What aspects of the trainings tend to require the most education for influencers and brands?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that we encounter is that responsible influence is simply a compliance issue. I sort of alluded to this before. It's really a trust and a reputation issue as well. It's not all about compliance, right? So consumers care about transparency, authenticity, and whether they can trust the influencers that they follow. So while compliance is important, and we definitely say that, right? As I'm a former NAD attorney, and you, Annie, and Eric as current NAD attorneys, I think it's also important to realize that we're building and maintaining consumer trust, and that's, I think, an important part of this program. And then from a practical standpoint, I think additional education is definitely needed in understanding material connections and disclosure requirements. I think that many people still assume that disclosures are only required when money exchanges hands, but that's not the case. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about the fact that a material connection may exist when there's a gifted product, when there's an affiliate relationship, when there's a discount or special access, um, that those could all constitute material connection. So I think there's a lot of education needed there. We hear from brands and agencies that consistently additional education is needed in order to make clear their responsibilities around using others' intellectual property, whether it's using copyrighted music, reposting someone else's content, incorporating third party materials into a post. Brands and agencies have said to us that there's a lot of misunderstanding out in the creator ecosystem. So we do have training on use of others' intellectual property. We will continue to develop those materials. And then I think probably one of the other biggest misconceptions is the fact that responsibility is shared. I think that there's still a deep misunderstanding in the creator economy about that. The FTC has made it clear that influencer compliance isn't solely, um, the creator's responsibility or the brand's responsibility, that it really um, is a joint responsibility. Brands and agencies are expected to provide guidance, but creators are also responsible for making truthful endorsements and disclosing their material connections. So I think those are probably like the three areas where we see the most education needed.
So we talked about the training and certification and how influencers can build trust. Are there any other obligations that influencers have ongoing through this program?
Well, certification is definitely not intended to be a one and done exercise. It's an ongoing commitment. Creators are expected to continue applying the principles that they learned through the program as they create their own content and as they engage in new brand partnerships. That includes clearly disclosing their material connections, ensuring their endorsements are truthful and they actually reflect their honest opinions and their real experiences with the products. Um, they should be avoiding misleading or unsupported claims, respecting intellectual property rights. So, really, certified creators are agreeing to uphold that best practices pledge and to participate in the program's ongoing accountability framework, which is that monitoring framework. So ultimately, this certification signals more than just a completing of a simple training course. It signals that you're a responsible influencer, and you've agreed to this sort of ongoing commitment to be accountable and responsible.
How are you educating consumers about the certification so that they know what it is when they see the banner or the seal? For example, the Digital Advertising Alliance launched the ad choices icon in 2011 to foster consumer trust and transparency around behavioral advertising concerns.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because I think it's something that i- i- we don't get asked a lot, and I really think that consumer awareness is an important part of the long-term vision for IRI. The certification seal is intended to serve as a signal, yes, to brands and agencies, but also to consumers that a creator is trained in the rules of the road, right? And they will follow responsible advertising practices, or that they are trained in responsible advertising practices. So right now, we're focused on building awareness of the program through partnerships with brands, agencies, creator communities, and platforms. Very important part, um, like TikTok and others. So as adoption grows, I think our goal is for consumers to increasingly recognize the seal as a meaningful indicator. Um, it's something else, we did some research through BBB National Programs Influencer Trust Index, and we surveyed consumers about how they understand influencer marketing. That really spoke to what builds trust, what drives trust, what ultimately causes trust to break down in a consumer's eyes. So I think continuing to do that research is another important way for us to like take the consumer's pulse, to make sure that programs like this are being understood by consumers and how they can be valuable to them. I think that's another important piece of the puzzle, and something we'll continue to expand upon.
So, as we wind down, let's talk about the future and what's next for IRI. We've seen influencer marketing grow quickly to take its place here in the marketplace. How do you see influencer self-regulation evolving over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, we're focused on continuing to grow IRI and expand its impact across the creator economy. I think the beauty of self regulation is that it can be flexible, right? And as the creator economy continues to grow and change, so can the program. There's a few things that we're particularly excited about. I would say one is the development of a creator council. As I said, we have an advisory council that we've worked with that really consists of brands, agencies, and industry associations. But we want creators to have a seat at the table too as the program evolves. I think we need creators to help us understand emerging trends, challenges that they are facing, opportunities from the creators' perspectives. I think that would really help to make the program rich. Influencer marketing moves incredibly quickly. So having direct input from creators will help ensure that the program remains practical and relevant. We're also developing a certified creator database that I mentioned. So that will allow brands, agencies, and really any other stakeholders to verify a creator certification status. So as the program grows, that database will hopefully be used to provide greater transparency and accountability while making it easier for brands and agencies to identify creators who have completed the training and are really committed to responsible influence principles. We've also received a lot of feedback from stakeholders that there's an appetite to create individual trainings in different verticals. So, for example, a training specifically for beauty content creators, a training specifically for those focused on health and wellness um, content creation, and those that have a family audience or a teen or child directed audience. So, we are actively looking at creating those vertical specific trainings because, again, if that's what the industry is calling for, we are happy to sort of, you know, uh, investigate that and try to bring that to fruition. So I think those are the areas where IRI is, focused on growing. And I think going forward, honestly, it's an exciting time. I think we'll see greater emphasis on education, on certification. We've already seeing that globally. I think that will just continue. I think we'll continue to see industry-led initiatives like IRI, like Ed Ethics, which is EASA's certification and training platform. Um, and I think we'll see greater collaboration among brands and agencies to establish these common frameworks to ensure that there's trust really built in to these partnerships and to this content creation, like from the beginning. Um, yeah, I think it's an exciting time.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for giving us all this information about IRI and what you're working on. Lastly, before we go, where can everyone go for more information uh, to learn about IRI and what you're doing?
Sure. You could go to responsibleinfluence.org. And on that website, it will be very clear. There's a page specifically for brands and agencies, and then a page specifically for creators. And you'll be able to find out everything you need to know about how to get certified.
So, Eric, let's recap.
So I think we learned a lot today about training and retraining and how important they are to give everyone the rules of the road and making sure that they're specific enough and give the kind of real world examples that help people as they try to comply with the rules of the road and build trust for their brands.
We also learned about how consumer trust is everything. The IRI certification program not only ensures that influencers know how to promote their products, uh, but it also fosters consumer trust by letting them know that the influencer is following the rules of the road and that they are making very clear the material connections. And as Jennifer mentioned, this is so important in many industries, particularly beauty and health and wellness, where these, um, where influencer marketing is very pervasive.
And IRI is new and innovative. And as the influencer landscape changes, it will evolve to meet the needs of brands and their audience. Thank you again for tuning into this episode of The Ad Watchers. We hope you enjoyed it.
Join us next month for another episode of The Ad Watchers. As always, you can head over to our website, bbbprograms.org, to learn more about what we do at the National Advertising Division or any of our other self-regulatory programs. That's all for this episode. See you next time. Thanks again for tuning into Ad Watchers. Be sure to check out our previous episodes at accountabilitystudio.org, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to get notified about our next episode.